Hey folks, I just wanted to do a quick video on the process of moral reasoning and particularly the work of John Rawls, which you don't really need to know, but I think is possibly helpful in understanding these various approaches to ethics, these ethical principles, and how they relate. And the first concept, about three or four of his concepts here, the first concept that I wanted to cover very briefly is reflective equilibrium, which is a fancy term, but I've always found this very useful. Um, the idea, I'll read it out here, an ongoing process of collective moral reasoning where we work back and forth between our considered judgments and our principles. We seek a match between the two, but one open to revision on both sides, right? So in terms of moral intuitions or considered judgments, what we mean here is, what we're pretty sure is right and what we're pretty sure is wrong in terms of actual practical application, right? So slavery is wrong, murder is wrong, perhaps something like letting people die because they're poor is wrong. That list is open to interpretation, but whatever you think goes into that list, and we can have a discussion. It's one of the reasons that this is collective. We might suggest things back and forth. Well, what about this? What about this? On the other side, we've studied some of these moral principles already: utilitarianism, deontology, various types of virtue ethics. And we might be willing to put some other things in here, including maybe some religious principles. And that is something that we can discuss a little bit later. But the idea is that you go back and forth and you're trying to seek a balance. You're trying to come up with a principle that fits all of the things you're pretty sure or are right or wrong. And if they don't match up, you have to decide, do you change your judgments about what you think is right and wrong, the specific items that get included or excluded, or do you change your principles? So imagine that you've got a moral principle. You think it's a pretty good one to start off with. It's utilitarianism, something like that. And on 20 items that you're really, really sure are right, utilitarianism says, yep, 19 of those endorse. But on the 20th one, it says, this ain't right, right? This doesn't match the principle of utility. Well, you got to decide there. Do I want to change the principle of utility and then run it again, see how it matches? Maybe I want a more rule utilitarian view, or maybe I want to add a different adjunct principle, and combine it with utilitarianism. Or do I want to reconsider strongly whether or not that 20th position is something that I'm really committed to? Maybe I'm getting it wrong, and that's a good hint that the principle that makes sense of all of my other views doesn't make sense of that one. Maybe I should re-examine it and decide if it's something I'm really committed to and why I was committed to it in the first place. And this can work in the other direction. There might be something that you're not committed to. Say you've got a 20 out of 20 match with your principle of utility, and then the principle of utility tells you also something that you don't believe, like you shouldn't be eating animals from factory farms. Oh no! Like, do I now have to reconsider that because otherwise, I have an imbalance between my principles and the things that I believe are true or right. Right? So that's basically how this works, and it's an ongoing thing. It's a conversation we're having as a society or as a class, right? As a moral community. So it functions sort of on an individual and a collective level, and you never really finish because you're always considering new informations and you're always revising your principles. You never get a great fit that is stable forever. So, right, again, slavery is evil, maximize utility. Well, if you can imagine under just a basic principle of utility, a scenario where slavery would be justified, you might say, well, I can't go with this principle. It just can't be okay. So I'm going to go with a two-part principle like Rawls ends up going with, where everyone gets basic human rights, and then if we deviate from basic rights, it's only to maximize utilities. So once we have basic human rights, then we'll set up our institutions to maximize utility or something like that, right? It can get complicated very quickly. But the idea is that, the things that you are absolutely committed to need to match up with your principles, and then you use that match to figure out the stuff you're less sure about. Or maybe to refine your principles in ways that are even more powerful to then, right, go back over here and tell you more things that might be right or wrong. So One of the ways that Rawls is most famous for telling us we should think about, what principles would be fair is with this thought experiment he has called the original position. Right, so you're over here in the original position, and this is a space. It's a way of thinking about what is fair. That he thinks that if you put anyone into this mindset, they will pick the same principles of justice, and right, that's the whole basis of his big fat book. Big fat book. This thing was all the rage in the late 20th century, so I cut my teeth on it in college. So he thinks the way to think about this is imagine you're in a situation where you're going to pick the principles for society, the economic principles. Are you going to pick, laissez-faire capitalism, no rules, no hold bar capitalism? Are you going to pick socialism? Are you going to pick some kind of welfare capitalism? Are you going to pick no guarantee of health care? Are you going to pick the same health care provided by the government for everyone? Is it going to be universal schooling for everyone? Everyone gets the same kind of schooling? Is it going to go all the way up through college, or no, it's going to be all privatized? No, it's going to be charter schools. No, what kind of institutions are you going to set up? Right? The big stuff. He thinks that the way to imagine that, you're going to do it. You get to pick, and then that's just what society does. But when you pick, you have to pick under something called the veil of ignorance, right, which drops over you. We have it as a wall here. I copied this offline. And it makes it so that you don't know any of the identifying features about yourself. You don't know if you're rich or poor. You don't know if you're black or white. You don't know if you're a man or a woman. You don't know what your religion is. You don't know if you're tall or short. You don't know anything about yourself. And when the veil gets lifted, bam, there you are with all of your specific characteristics. Maybe you are a wealthy Latina woman. Maybe you are a blind white man. Maybe you are an old Indian man. We've a lot of race there, but think about class, think about skill. Maybe you're really smart. Maybe you're a super genius. Maybe you have an intellectual disability. You don't know. And when you lift this veil up, you get to find out how your life is going to go under the principles that you chose. And so Rawls thinks that we're going to pick, something that's fair for everyone, for every one of these people. We'll all choose it and endorse it because it could be us, right? And it's a way of thinking about the purpose of this is that Rawls is trying to tell us we should think about justice not in ways that help us based on where we are right now in our life. Like, I think that the most just principle is one that says libertarianism, no taxes. Well, if I'm sitting here as a rich person or as a person who thinks because I'm smart or educated or whatever or talented that I'm going to be rich, maybe I think that sounds like a good principle. Libertarianism, no government interference with private property and private decision making. No taxes or almost no taxes, no government programs. That's libertarianism. Maybe I think that's good if I'm going to benefit from it. But if I don't know that I'm going to do well, maybe I would hedge my bets and say, boy, I don't know that I would like that veil to lift. And it turns out I'm kind of dumb, and I grew up in a poor house and in a segregated area with bad schools. And I'm never going to be rich, and I'm not going to be able to afford healthcare. Maybe I should set up some institutions that, in case I end up being that person, that person doesn't exist, right? Or at least the person who is not intellectually gifted still lives a good life with healthcare and a house, and isn't thrown to the lions, right? Like in the utilitarian example. So this is sort of a fun way to think, what kinds of things do we want the veil to hide? And if you didn't know that whether or not you were a member of a certain class or occupied a certain position in society, how would you choose to protect that segment of society? And I'm not going to go into the things that Rawls thinks that you would pick, because nobody actually, when they're asked to be in this situation, picks his principles. But it's right. It's we can't actually put ourselves in that position. So maybe we would if we really could block out all of those things about ourselves. But he thinks that we're all going to pick equal rights, like Bill of Rights stuff. No cruel and unusual punishment, free speech, free religion, basic property rights. You can't take my stuff. Uh, no unreasonable search and seizure. Whatever basic rules, we all get them equally. We all have the same political, social, economic rights. But then he thinks that there are going to be some inequalities. Like some people get to hold positions of prestige and power, and some people get to have more money and such. But those things are going to be set up so that everyone benefits from them. Like maybe we let doctors be a bit more wealthy because if we have good doctors, everybody's health benefits and everyone in society benefits, right? So we can have a big discussion about what fits that kind of principle. And we need to set it up so that everyone has, as much as possible, a possibility to fill those roles, right? And that might include everybody getting decent education, decent early childhood care, things like that, because otherwise you're not going to have the opportunity to become that doctor and have that extra prestige and that extra money in society. This is what he thinks you'll pick. A lot of people pick utilitarianism. A lot of people pick this stuff up here, the first principle, and then they pick utilitarianism as the second principle. But it's a fun way to think about that. Finally, the last one, and we've covered this just a little bit, the idea of overlapping consensus. The idea that, we live in a pluralist society where we may not be able to decide that there's one principle that's right for everybody. The argument, the discussion, the debate over ethics is not going to lead us all to believe 100% all of the same things. And that's especially true in a society where most people take most of their moral principles from religious teachings, right? Or maybe from non-systematic teachings, and they just have a hodgepodge of ethical commitments. Which, right? That's not to insult that. Rawls himself there is cobbling together multiple principles. But he does believe that in every society there's an area of agreement on moral judgments between all of the reasonable principles that exist in that society, and that's the area for legitimate political authority, right? That's where you make laws and you restrict people's lives to just the things that everybody agrees to. Now, that's in the broad sense. What those mean in practice, right? We all believe in free speech, but what are the boundaries of where speech can be regulated and things like that? What counts as speech and what counts as a threat or as libel or whatever, something like that? What's outside the bounds of acceptable? That stuff we have to negotiate. But he thinks that all the utilitarians and the virtue ethics people of various kinds and the deontologists, there's going to be some area that they all agree on, where there's that no slavery, everybody gets a right to free speech, this is society dependent. Not every society may, but he thinks in America that this is where, the stuff that's in the American Constitution, the stuff that's part of the American creed, all men are created equal, due process, equal protection of the laws, free speech, right to religion, all this stuff is going to be in here. And everybody may agree to it for their own reasons. I may agree to it because I think it's part of fundamental human rights. I may agree to it because I think it makes everybody happier. I may agree to it because I think that it ennobles people's characters. But for whatever reason, we're all agreeing to this stuff. And this is the stuff that we make laws about and enforce and send people to jail. And it's the stuff that we take people's money through taxes over and that sort of thing. And then we all may have other commitments that are part of our personal moral philosophies. Like maybe you're a utilitarian and you really feel like you got to give that coffee money over to the poor because otherwise you're being a bad person. You have to feel like all of your personal decisions maximize utility. Or maybe you're a deontologist and you think it's always wrong to lie. Lying it shows disrespect for persons, and so you can never, even a white lie, you can never tell a white lie, even to make people happy. Whereas the utilitarian's over here lying his head off, telling you, you look great in those pants, they fit great. The deontologist is like, nope, they don't fit, they look terrible on you. It would be disrespectful to not tell you the truth. Whereas the virtue ethicist is saying some other stuff like maybe you have to go to church 3 times a week to make you humble or noble or whatever. There's a lot of overlap between virtue thinking and religion, particularly the Catholic Church is a very much a virtue ethics based institution. Now, all of them, right? That stuff like that, or the major religions would go in here, and Islam might tell you need to wear a headscarf, and maybe you're a Seventh Day Adventist, and you're told you can't eat meat or you can't drink alcohol. These are going to be in your personal area, but all of those views, if they are reasonable, or another way to put it is you have to endorse a reasonable version of those principles or those ideologies that covers this space. And occasionally you get either versions of these views or other ideologies like, say, white supremacy or Nazism that don't cover this space at all, right? They think it is okay to kill people. It is okay to discriminate against people. It is okay maybe even to enslave people. They view a whole bunch of things that are out of bounds in our society, and we view them as unreasonable. We say, get the hell out, right? Get the hell out. We'll send you to jail for acting on your views. We will prohibit you from organizing. We'll call you a terrorist organization, or we'll classify the things you're saying as hate speech. And right, so this is sort of the interlay here in how we can have a society where, even though we believe in pluralism, where people have their own views, and they may differ, we think that there's enough of an overlap that we can build a political society around it. And that's it. All right, 16 minutes, not bad. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If it's confusing, don't worry about it. It's really just supposed to help you figure out a little bit more how to put together all these pieces with ethical thinking. All right, thanks for watching, guys.